What's up guys, Levi here, and in this video I'm just going to talk about Bad Omens. Now, I've done a couple of other videos like this about Architects and Asking Alexandria, basically ranking all their albums from worst to best, talking a little bit about the albums as well. Bad Omens currently are my favourite band right now, so it was a bit of a challenge for me to actually rank these albums and sort of find, things that I might not have liked as much. But overall, I just didn't really want to be biased about these albums either. I wanted to kind of like take these albums from a bit of an outsider standpoint and just see if I could, find something that maybe isn't as good. Because in ranking them, it's kind of like choosing like your favorite kids, for example. It's just not really possible, but I feel like I've done it in a way that I feel like is fair. It's not as biased, and yeah, we'll just get straight on with it. So the band has 3 studio albums. They've got 1 soundtrack. So I'm gonna rank the soundtrack in this, and Concrete Jungle, the soundtrack, is at number 4. So some of the songs that they did do on this album were really good. I think songs like Van, Drain, Anything More Than Human, they're really good songs. For me though, what drags this album down, which I can understand with it being more of a soundtrack focused album, was that there wasn't like enough new material on it. It was like a lot of old material that had just been like recycled to sound different. So you've got like the Hedonist remix with Wargasm, for example. You've got the remixes of Death of Peace of Mind and Artificial Suicide. You've got the Grey remixed, and then the Just Pretend remix as well, which sounded very like synthwavy, which I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of prefer the synthwave version of Just Pretend to the original version. I'll say a little bit more when I talk about the Death Peace of Mind as to why. And then you've got the album sort of capped off with just a bunch of live recordings, which, the band are amazing live. Yeah, if I was to listen to this album, the main songs that I would be listening to it for is The Drain, Anything More Than Human, and I do really like Digital Footprint. And then the ones that I'm more likely going to skip on this album are obviously going to be like the little interludes. They're called like projects. I don't feel like the Death of Peace of Mind, the We Are Fury remix, was as good as the So Wiley one. So yeah, that's Concrete Jungle at number 4. I give this album a 72%, which isn't terrible. At the end of the day, it's a soundtrack, so it's going to be more focused on remixes and reuses of certain things. But yeah, coming in at number 3 is Finding God Before God Finds Me. Ranking this and their first album and choosing which one was better was so difficult because both albums have such high strengths, but then where they might not hit it out the park as much, kind of is level on both albums as well. For me, these 2 albums, it depends on the day. It depends on the mood I'm in at the end of the day. But Finding God Before God Finds Me. So it took me an awful long time to listen to this album. I started listening to Bad Omens back in 2024. It was literally just the Death of Peace of Mind, just over and over again. I wasn't really... It's not that I wasn't interested in hearing the earlier stuff. It's just, it wasn't what I really wanted to do at the time. Because I knew that the earlier stuff were a little bit more post-hardcore. They were getting Bring Me the Horizon comparisons all the time. So I kind of knew what I was going into when I was listening to those 2 first albums. But I eventually did listen to Finding God Before God Finds Me. And when Kingdom of Cards came on, I was a bit like, this is actually kind of cool. And then obviously you got Dethrone on there, which is one of their biggest tracks. Always closes their live shows. And then the story behind it as well, like it just makes that song so much more meaningful as well. You've got Mercy as well, which when I heard Mercy for the first time, I was just a bit like, did Architects come on randomly? Because it definitely felt like a song that would have been from the All Our Gods Architects era. Now, here's some hot takes. I think some of their more popular songs from this album are kind of overrated. I'm just not a massive fan of Careful What You Wish For, and I know that's quite a popular song amongst the fan base. And Limits as well, I feel like is a little bit overrated. I feel like there's so many more songs on this album that are so much better than this song. And I did like their cover of Come Undone. Like, I do like the original as well by Duran Duran, but I feel like the way that they turn this into a bit more of like a metal song just worked. But yeah, when listening to this album, the main three songs that I'm listening to this album are Kingdom of Cards, Dethroned, and Mercy. Come Undone, again, is one of those songs. It depends on the mood that I'm in, but Come Undone, I'll give that an honorable mention as a number 4. And then the songs that I'm more likely to skip off this album are Running in Circles, Careful What You Wish For, and Said and Done. Overall, I give Finding God Before God Finds Me a 85%, which is definitely good. It's definitely one of the higher albums that I've ranked on this channel. And yeah, coming in at number 2 is Bad Omens' first album. So again, this took me a while to get around to listening to, because I think what I did was I listened to Death of Peace of Mind an awful lot. Then I started dabbling into Finding God Before God Finds Me, listened to that a lot, and then I finally made my way to the first album. Now, their first album, I can see why a lot of people compare them to Bring Me the Horizon. It definitely feels very much like Sempiternal era Bring Me the Horizon, but all bands, they've got to start from somewhere, and when you're starting out in like a music related career, you're obviously going to be drawn to taking influences from other people. It feels very difficult to launch like a band or a music project and just have it sound completely different than anyone's ever heard before. Like, there are reasons why you want to start a band, there's a reason why you want to make music, and it's because of the music you're already listening to. So even though they do get compared to Bring Me the Horizon a lot, I can see why. Like, Bring Me the Horizon were probably their biggest influence in making music. Yeah, I mean, you've got songs like Glass Houses, Exit Wounds, really good strong start to the album. Then you've got, I'd say, a little bit of a dip after that. Worst in Me, Feral, and Enough Now. I still listen to those songs, but for me, they're not the songs that I'm coming to this album to listen to. Then you've got Malice, which to me sounded very much more like a Slipknot song than it did Bring Me the Horizon. And then Broken Youth as well. I feel like Broken Youth as well is a little bit over it. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with me. I feel like all the most popular songs from those first 2 albums that people love, I just feel like are a little bit overrated. I feel like there's so much more better songs in the context of the album. And then you've got The Letdown, The Reprise, and The Fountain, which I'd probably say that The Fountain is probably their strongest album closer. When I'm coming to listen to this album, the main 3 songs I'm listening to this album for are Glass Houses, Malice, and The Fountain. The ones that I'm more likely to skip are Enough Now, Crawl, and Feral as well, which, again, I'll listen to these songs, but I've got to choose some songs that I'm least likely to listen to. But overall, I give this album an 86%, so it's just 1% higher than Finding God Before God Finds Me. Again, though, it literally just depends on the day and the mood I'm in. Before we get to the number 1, I want to talk about this as an honourable mention, which is the Left for Good EP. So in 2025, Bad Omens released 4 songs: Spectre, Impose, Left for Good, and Dying to Love. As a project, it's definitely some of their best work they've ever done. Some of those songs, to this day, I can still listen to, and it's just not boring. It does make me excited for what could eventually be their 4th studio album, if we don't count Concrete Jungle. Yeah, I remember hearing Spectre for the first time. I was thinking, okay, so they're going to go in a little bit of a different direction, but they're still going to hold on to some of the elements that made the Death of Peace of Mind so good. And then Impose came out, and I know that Impose got a little bit of backlash because of how different it was, but as somebody that likes a variety of music, I connected with Impose straight away, and it's definitely one of my favorite Bad Omens songs. Then they released Dying to Love, which felt very Deftones-like, but with a Bad Omens flair to it. And then Left for Good as well, which, overall I think is a really good song. With Left for Good and Dying to Love, it literally, again, it just depends on the day and the mood I'm in, what I would prefer to listen to. But obviously in Left for Good, you've got the breakdown, which a lot of fans seem to like about that song. Seeing these 4 songs live as well is definitely an experience, especially with Impose. Like, when I saw them live, they did these tape recordings. There's a little bit of a break between some chunks of songs. And tape 5 that they play before Impose is definitely a very emotional one, and it's something that just hit me like a ton of bricks when I heard it for the first time. And then Impose, that song live is definitely an experience, especially because they've changed the end where they've extended the outro and you've got Noah just screaming, "Do I impose?" That song for me is probably my favorite song from 2025 overall. If I was to give this album a percentage, I'd give it a 92. I just think it was that good of an EP. Because it's only 4 songs, it's really difficult to choose what I would least likely listen to. It would probably be Dying to Love or Left for Good, but again, like I said, it just depends on the mood that I'm in. And then at number 1, we've got The Death of Peace of Mind, which is not a shock to a lot of people. This album got a lot of people into Bad Omens. It got me into Bad Omens. Like I said, I started listening to the band in 2024. This album was my introduction to the band. It was a recommendation from my brother, who was recommended it to him by a friend of his. And he was saying to me, it's really good. There's some songs on there that are kind of like Weekend like-ish. My brother's like a massive Weekend fan. And he was saying there's one song on there as well that kind of sounds like Slipknot to me, which is artificial suicide. But yeah, so I gave the album a go, and hearing Concrete Jungle for the first time, I was like, this is actually really good. I'd seen like promotional stuff for Bad Omens before, and I just felt like they were going to be one of those bands that were going to be like metalcore and just like too heavy. Because at that point in my life, I was just sort of like into anything, like I was just listening to, rap some days, and then I'd be listening to thrash some days, and then some post-hardcore, then some metalcore. So I was like into a lot of stuff at the time. So I think when I listened to this album for the first time and just sort of experienced just how different a lot of these songs were, I feel like that it really connected me to the band. You've got songs like Nowhere to Go, Take Me First. The first 3 tracks were definitely a strong album opener, but where this album really got into its game was The Death of Peace of Mind. Again, really different song from what I was expecting from the band. Again, like, this is one of those songs that one of my favorite songs from the band I could listen to constantly and just not get bored of it. And then you've got What It Cost and Like a Villain, which, again, Like a Villain, one of the best songs the band's ever done. To me, this band is just this sort of band that just can't miss right now. There's still time, but currently, like, this band just can't miss at the moment. And then you've got songs like, Bad Decisions, Who Are You, Somebody Else, which very not even rock, not metal, not rock, it's just very chill sort of music. Just Pretend. So obviously when I was talking about Concrete Jungle EP, I was saying I prefer the synthwave version. I kind of feel like Just Pretend is a little bit overrated again. I know that there was this whole joke that Noah wrote it as a bit of a joke, as a bit of a dad rock song or a butt rock song, and then it ended up blowing up. Again, I can listen to it, and when I saw this song live, I was singing along to it. So it's definitely a good song, but I just don't feel like it's as good as a lot of people are making out, especially when you've got songs on this album like The Death of Peace of Mind, Like a Villain, Concrete Jungle, Bad Decisions. There is a lot of good songs leading up to that song, which I would much rather listen to than this song. The Grey is probably my favorite song from this album. I know I say this a lot, but The Grey last year was my number 1 song on Spotify. It's one of those songs, I love it, but it's so fucking difficult to sing along to because of how Noah's vocal range is in this song. I feel like that's one of the songs from this album that kind of fell under the radar a little bit, but to me it is the best. It is their best song on this album. Definitely up there with one of my favorite songs by them. Then you've got Who Are You, Somebody Else, which I think this is where my brother was like on about the band sounding a little bit like The Weeknd, because you got the high-pitched vocals from Noah and just sort of more of like a trap beat than like a rock beat or a metal beat. I Don't Want the Money. This is probably the song that I'm most likely to skip if I was to listen to this album. There's just not a lot to say about it, to be honest. What Do You Want From Me? So I do like it when the band goes into like that sort of synthwave cyberpunk kind of sound, and this song definitely is satisfying. When I saw them live, they played Anything More Than Human, and then they played this after. Now, I thought that they were going to go into Digital Footprint from the Concrete Jungle EP, but when I realized that it was What Do You Want From Me, I was happy with it, like I think the song's really good. And then you've got Artificial Suicide, which, yeah, this song overall, it's a good heavy song. At least they had one heavy song on this album that can show what the band can really do if they really wanted to. Plus, it's one of the more popular songs that they play live as well. So, and then the album caps off with Miracle, which I must say, I think is one of the weaker songs that they've ended an album on. To me, it felt very much like their attempt to do something in the vein of That's the Spirit era, Bring the Horizon. It might just be me that thinks that, but it's kind of what I felt when I first listened to this song. This just feels like something off That's the Spirit or Ammo. Yeah, I've been very against the band being compared so harshly to Bring Me the Horizon, but they when you hear that for the first time, that's the first thing that literally came to my head. But yeah, overall, this album to me is one of my favorite albums in a very long time. The songs that I'm most likely to listen to off this album are Death of Peace of Mind, Like a Villain, The Grey, and then the ones I'm least likely to listen to are Miracle, I Don't Want the Money, and Just Pretend. But even then, like, it's like choosing a favorite kid. Like, it's difficult to choose songs that I would least likely listen to. Like, it took me so long to narrow this album down to those three songs that I would probably skip or I just least likely have fun with. It goes to show just how good a band is and an album is when you feel that way. But overall, I give Death of Peace of Mind 93%. So definitely one of the highest rankings that I've done for an album from a band. That's my Bad Omens ranking overall. I'm excited to see what they come up with for the next album. But yeah, excited to see what's coming from the band. And if you guys have any, different rankings, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.